That's just always a stuff that needs a little extra time, you know what I mean? Because it just has a tendency to isolate those fish. They like stuff that's different too, you know what I mean? Like everything looks exactly the same, even though the bottom is the same. Like it's flat as a pancake out here. So you're always looking for something different. That's the biggest complaint I hear about guys who go to Florida the first time or go to Okeechobee. They're like, it all looks the same, but it doesn't, you know? Now see that fish, I think is a female. Looks healthy, but let's make sure she doesn't have a big old tail sticking out of her mouth.
Okay.
I would rather be tight on them. I don't never want slack line.
Can you explain why?
I want to pull the hook, if that makes sense. Like I'm totally against the whole slack line hook set, because the deal is I don't care if I'm using fluorocarbon or braid. That sudden impact, a lot of times you jerk the hook out of their mouth. And so it's almost like that deal when I put pressure on them as I start to lean, they don't know it's me. So they just crush it. They feel it start to pull and they just, you know, and you just pull the hook into them. Today we're going to talk about breaking down a new body of water and my top 3 pick baits for that situation. Now here what we have today is a lot of shallow water and a lot of vegetation. These 3 baits might vary from lake to lake in some just because of the type of cover we're fishing. But you know, here today we got pads and grass, and I've not been here, so I don't know exactly yet, you know, what these fish are doing. So it's always good to have like 3 main baits, something that you have confidence in, that you feel like you can catch fish that time of the year out of that cover. And so today, it's gonna be a frog, a flipping bait, and a swim jig, which are 3 of my go-tos all over the countries. But always those baits will vary some with the cover. You know, if we were on a lake that was full of bushes right now, or we were fishing rocks and boat docks, you know, the color selection might be different. I might tweak the bait slightly. I might remove one of them from the equation and add something else. Might be a buzz bait instead of a frog today. But, you know, basically that's what we're gonna do. We're fixing to break this body of water down with 3 of my confidence baits. You know, so as you become a bass fisherman, or you're already an experienced bass fisherman, you know, there's always certain baits and techniques that you have a ton of confidence in. And high on that list for me is a frog, whether it's a popping perch, a KVD sexy frog, pad perch. All 3 of those Strike King frogs I really like. This particular time of the year, we're still in the springtime. As you can tell, I got a sweatshirt on this morning. It's a little cooler. I find that time of the year when you're frog fishing that fish like more of a walking style, slow, methodical. Seems to generate those bites around the spawn, pre-spawn, even after the spawn. The more time you leave that frog in an area, you know, it generates more bites this time of the year. And so typically this time of the year, my number 1 pick, when I don't know what I'm gonna use, when I don't know exactly what the fish are doing, I'm always gonna pick up that KVD sexy frog first. And the reason for that is, to me, this bait walks easier. It's easier for me to do that walk to dog, leave it in one place and irritate those fish. And you know, typically springtime around the spawn, irritation is the key. You know, it's making that fish defensive. You get more defensive bites this time of the year than any other. And that's the other reason I like the Sexy Frog is my #1 pick right now. As far as rod and reels, basically the same. This is my 7.3 Lew's frog rod, BB1 Pro reel, 8.3 to 1. I love a super fast reel. Another thing that happens, you're fishing extremely shallow this time of the year. Those shallow water fish have a tendency to move a lot and move quickly on the hook set. And so I like that high speed reel. I prefer anytime, you'll find this, anytime I talk about whether I'm winding a square bill, a bladed jig, whatever it is, if I'm casting and winding, I always use the BB1 Pro. It's got a large spool, holds a lot of line. And for me, the big key to a reel that holds a lot of line with a big spool is that reel is as fast on the end of the cast or on the beginning as it is on the end when I get it back, if that makes sense.